working on a film a little while ago, and we needed a really impressive looking arrow for a shot. So I brought one of my killing arrows in. It's a tri-bladed hunting arrow.
Right.
Because it's tri-bladed, if it hits you, your flesh opens up like a flower.
God.
It was in the story of it. Now, the camera shot was of the young lady in question drawing the arrow for the shot, and so of course it's quite close up. So as I trained her, she announced that she was knocking on, which meant that the arrow was on the string.
Right.
When she pulled it back, all 40 pounds of the strength of the bow were now ready to release that arrow. I heard her call knocking on, I looked up, and the whole camera crew, the sound guy, the assistant director, and 4 or 5 other people were in front of her.
Oh my God.
I went sprinting over like, no!
I'm Ryan, and I made a film called Every Legend Ends. Today I'm joined by one of the key people who brought it to life, Jack Butler, the film's fight choreographer, who's here to share some insight into the art of fight choreography and how these sequences come together. Firstly, how do you like the space?
It's a very interesting little space.
You like it? Yeah, I tried to set it up to be sort of comfortable, relaxing, like a living room, you know, because in my living room we sit on office chairs awkwardly sort of sitting at, staring at each other, watching the TV in the background like that.
Well, as everyone does.
Yeah. But yeah, so we might as well get straight into it then. So we'll start off with the scene from the film, which is something you worked on, you did.
I did.
Let's just play it, and then we'll have a little comment of it.
10 minutes? We say soon.
So yeah, straightforward. How do you do it?
With great difficulty.
Okay.
This was a huge challenge. I've never in my life done a fight scene where one person wasn't there. Basically, the key to a fight scene like this is repetition. You have to make sure that everyone does the same footsteps, the same movements every single time, so that whatever angle you shoot it from, it's always going to be the same. So every time we rehearsed it, I made sure they took the exact same number of steps every time. So every time he swung a punch, it always went to the same place. So when the stunt lady that was there, when there was no one there, he was still swinging at the same point in the air. Obviously that takes more time to rehearse, it takes more time to shoot, but you do end up with a superior final product if, for example, the cameraman always knows exactly where the principal's going to be.
Okay, so yeah, I was going to ask you about that, choreographing for someone who wasn't there. If we just take a step back a moment, but what's it like just choreographing fights in general? So imagining she was there, so you say it's all about the repetition, about like a dance, like you've got to hit this step, then that step, and this step.
Absolutely. If you want a really good, shootable, repeatable fight, then you need to have everything planned out, not just what the actor's doing, but where the camera guy's going to be, where the sound guy's going to be, what shots we can get, what shots we can't get, where we can shoot from for each individual, like for every punch, for every kick, you have to know where everyone involved is going to be. So it's like having a dance in your head, and you have to keep track of everyone who's dancing. So
with this, it was sort of shot on a little strip of land. So it was in a forest, but then the bit we come to there is basically on, I mean, it's much smaller than this room, isn't it even? It's like half the width of this room. So you basically got a little strip of land to work on. How does the location like that affect what you do? Well,
there's 2 things to bear in mind. There's where the actors are going to be, and as we're discussing, there's where the camera people and where the rest of the crew are going to be as well. So what you have to do is you have to decide which angles you want to use, which angles you have to use, so you can work around having empty spaces for everyone else to be in. So, for example, when the fight starts, we're shooting in a little corner. What you can't see is maybe 12 degrees furthest round to the left is you with your computer directing and shouting at people. 15 degrees to the right, there's a whole mess of tents and camp and other things there. So you have to be very aware all the time of what angles you can and can't, especially with something like a fantasy film or historical film. You can't have traffic lights in the background, you can't have power lines, so you've always got to be thinking, what angle can I use, what angle can't I use?
I mean, you're saying about the sort of I mean, we might as well play this clip actually, which is the rehearsal. So this was sort of rehearsing with the, obviously both the actors, but also the camera guy as well. And obviously the movements are pretty much the same as what you see in the final thing. But what I was going to ask was, in terms of the other person not being there, does that matter in terms of the, you know what I mean? So, because if he remembers the movements, does it matter if there is a person there or not? What do you say?
It depends on the fight you're trying to portray, the fight you're trying to build. In this fight, because I knew she wasn't going to be there all the time, I had to make sure that everything he was going to react to was a swung strike, as opposed to him being picked up and thrown.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So I couldn't have any movements in the fight where the monster had to interact with him beyond a strike or a kick.
Interesting.
So obviously that takes out a lot of things that might otherwise have been used.
Yeah, there's a bit after that where the monster comes back and then does pick him up, which I picked him up basically. But you couldn't do that because it would interrupt the edit, basically. You're saying, so you have to do big movements, you say? So because of what?
Well, it's every fight is a miniature story, and you have to tell the story in a way that the people watching it will believe, and it's got to be consistent across all of your fights. So, for example, in a superhero movie, I could smack someone in the head with a metal bar. Doesn't matter, he's a superhero.
Yeah.
In a fight that's supposed to be real, if I hit you in the head with a 3-foot steel bar, the fight is now over and you are dead.
Yeah, I see, yeah.
In this, we've got a supernatural creature who is supernaturally strong.
Yeah.
So all the strikes that land have to have a big reaction, which is why he goes flying through the air, he goes rolling on the ground. Because when someone who is strong enough to, punch holes in a car door punches you, you fall over.
Yeah. I mean, that's something we'll come on to later, but at that point, the monster's sort of meant to be a bit weaker. I was saying to you where it's like a legendary beast, so it starts off dead, it's reanimated, and then this is sort of halfway through where it's sort of a bit weak. And obviously, I think you were coaching Sophie to like limp a bit as well.
Yeah.
But I think you were saying like that's the reason why he's not completely, his head doesn't fly off, because a little bit weak, but that ties into like the art, the consistent internal narrative.
That was the story that, as I understood it at the time, was that it was still, like, it was super strong, but it wasn't Superman strong, it was just much stronger than a human being.
So apart from the other fight participant not being there, was there anything unique about this, would you say, compared to other fights you've done?
Every fight is unique in its own challenges. There's always a thing you have to do. Like the start of this fight, we had to take his gun away from him.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we don't have a fight.
Yeah.
And then that gun had to be taken away from him and put far enough away that he could retrieve it later on in the film, but that it would be out of the fight. It was, as I'm sure you remember, a pretty muddy day. We spent as much time brushing him down between takes. I've never spent so much time around another man's bottom with a brush. Because every time we dropped him on the ground, he got dirty. Yeah. And so while there was a certain amount of dirty, we're going to have continuity. So every time we picked him up, we had to brush all the dirt off him.
But is that unique about this? Or like, I guess that's about the location, isn't it? And about
there's
the consistency between the shots.
You go for a walk on a mountain.
Yeah.
You might walk on that mountain every day, but you take a slightly different route. You're still walking on the mountain, you're just looking at different things. So a fight is a fight is a fight. But in this case, it's between a 9-foot-tall demon and a...
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about like the arc, the story arc of a fight? So how it starts and the ups and downs and stuff in it?
I think what most people don't realise is that your average fights last between 9 and 14 seconds. And also, even though people don't really pay attention, at some point everyone has seen someone else get punched in the face. A lot of people have been punched in the face.
Right.
You recognise it at a visceral level.
Yeah.
So one of the things you've got to pay attention to when you're choreographing a fight is that visceral reality of being punched in the face.
Yeah.
If someone takes damage, if someone is injured, you have to show the injury. You have to allow for it. It needs to be part of the story you're telling. So the monster was limping, it couldn't use one arm properly. We made that part of the fight, which is why the monster predominantly uses its right arm.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to make sure that is a consistent thing that happens. One of the things that drives me absolutely mental in films is when that isn't taken into account. People take impossible levels of damage and carry on fighting, or injuries that should kill them on the spot, but they still get up 3 minutes later.
Yeah, plot armor really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so avoidable. So in The Expanse, there's a scene where one of the main characters is being given a kicking by some bad guys to send a message. He gets a metal pole stuck straight through his solar plexus and out his back. Now, if you did that, first of all, sticking a metal pole through someone's solar plexus will kill them dead instantly. There's no comeback from that. But from the angle they put it through, it would also have severed his spine.
Right.
But he's in a hospital bed an hour later, breathing fine. Yeah. And it's like, no, that was, and all they had to do was move the prosthetic 3 inches to either side, and it would have been a survivable injury, and the story would have made sense. Yeah, yeah. But because they put it where they did, I couldn't watch the rest of the episode. I was just like, I was so angry that the guy wasn't dead when he'd taken a killing blow.
Yeah, yeah. But do you think, is that something that like the majority of people would pick up on, or is it just about, you know, like communicating the severity of it? You know what I mean? In the sense of like, if you have someone limping, you sort of don't need to know what muscle is injured. No. It's about communicating like, this is a serious thing. You know what I mean?
Yes and no. It's like if you have a scene with a bunch of photographers and half of them have the wrong lenses on their camera, anyone who actually uses cameras is going to watch that scene and they'll lose their immersion in the film immediately because that is wrong. So yeah, maybe only 5% of the audience will recognise that's a killing injury, but you've lost that 5% now. Yeah. Films are about immersion, and once you lose that, it doesn't matter if it's superheroes or magic or monsters or cops and robbers. The second you lose that immersion, you've lost that audience member. So you need to, and it is about the little details, like where you put a wound, where this happens, where that happens, because once you lose that, once you lose your internal coherency, you lose audience members.
Can a fight be too long?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's very easy to lose interest in a fight.
That's part of, I presume, the arc. Because when I'm saying about the arc, like the story arc of a fight, it's like, yes. By having like a better, not better than this, but like a longer arc, can you make a fight longer? Could you have a fight that's like, 5-10 minutes long and be compelling?
Well, what you do is you bring in other elements. So there'd be a second or third fighter, there'd be a door to run through, a window to jump through. There's a wonderful scene in Ong Bak. It's actually quite famous as the longest fight scene ever recorded in a single take, where one guy fights his way up a whole building, just beating the holy hell out of everyone who comes at him. Force and written and composed by Tony Jaa, who's one of my absolute heroes. It's savage. It is a little repetitive because at the end of the day, it's people attacking Tony Jaa and him punching them in the face. But because it all happens on different levels and people are throwing over balconies and throwing through windows, there's aspects, there's more things going on.
It's about the unique elements in a way, I guess, isn't it?
That's very much the art of the choreographer, is to take what is frankly quite dull and make it something watchable and interesting. If every fight was just, oh, I have a knife, now you're stabbed, and now the fight is over, no one would care. You need a bit of struggle, you need there to be a table flipped over, someone thrown on the floor, things happening.
So here's another clip for a bit near the end, but this is when she has a sword. So do you tailor, I mean, I sort of know the answer, but obviously you can expand on it. But do you tailor the fight around what the character has and also knows? Because like she was meant to be just some person, you know, she's not a skilled swords person or anything. But do you tailor the fight and how it goes around like how good at fighting they're meant to be or what equipment they have?
Absolutely. At the end of the day, you can't have some random girl pick up a sword and suddenly be a master swordsman. That's not how real life works. It takes years to learn how to use a sword properly. So when we were choreographing that bit, when we were putting it together, we had to make sure it looked like she was wildly swinging with a sword she didn't know how to use properly, because that's what she's doing. So her movements, and again, it is a bit exaggerated, but if you've never swung a sword before, it's a kilo of steel. And when you swing it, it will pull your whole body after it. And you watch someone do it, and it looks ridiculous. And then you try it, and you go, oh, that's actually how it works. So you have to play that up a bit. You have to make sure that your character doesn't magically become, and again, going back to one of the things that drives me insane, a character who can put one bullet into exact target from 300 meters away, 30 seconds later can fire an entire clip off at point blank range and miss everything. You need to have that consistency. You're a marksman or you're not a marksman. You're a swordsman or you're not a swordsman. So when you're writing the fights, when you're choreographing them, you have to make sure that each move of every fight for every person involved is tailored to someone who is at that appropriate level of fighting. So you go to the first fight we saw with the monster. That's an armed response officer. He spent time, he's been professionally trained, he has fought day in and day out. So you put him in a fight for his life, he's going to gouge your eyes out, kick you in the nuts because he knows it works. And that's what I wanted that fight to look like, where a competent fighter, only he was outmatched, but he was a competent fighter in his field of expertise. So he did manage to get his kicks in, he did manage to get his punches in, he did manage to get the stab in, even though he got his butt whooped. Whereas when you look at that sword fight from the end, the monster is toying with her effectively. Because I remember when I think I was actually the monster for part of that. You watch the swings, that monster is just ducking out of the way, moving out of the way. Clearly no respect at all for her as a swordsman.
Here's a fight from Black Mirror.
It's quite cool though, isn't it?
This one I thought was interesting because it feels quite real. You know, like quite real to how like an actual fight would be, especially near the end, what they do near the end here. See that, where it's like, it doesn't look particularly glamorous. Like there's some shots in the Paul fighting with the monster where it's like the camera's like swinging around really cinematically. You know, that seems quite gritty and real. So how do you balance that style, like realism, with it being cinematic?
That is something I tend to discuss with the director beforehand, of how they want to shoot the movie, shoot the TV show, because obviously those are two very, very different styles. In the clip we just saw, neither of those people are trained fighters. They're not physically strong. They're not adept. They're just trying to hurt each other. It's actually almost harder to choreograph those fights because you have to make them look improvised. And that's when people do kind of get hurt sometimes. Because you know, at the end of the day, if we're throwing punches backwards and forwards, especially if we've got to do 4 or 5 takes, someone's going to get thumped in the stomach, someone's going to get punched in the chest, you might catch one on the chin. That's just the nature of the beast. Obviously, we do everything we can to make it as safe as possible, and more so when weapons are involved. But if you're going to do this sort of job, you have to expect a bruise or 7.
Well, I mean, that looks kind of, when they're fighting there, it looks almost sort of random, you know, at the end when they're hitting each other like that. It looks sort of random, whereas, you know, the stuff that we were doing was more, like you say, it was like a dance where you punch and then you duck and then you punch. Whereas I guess that's more likely to be injured because it's just, all right, now you just hit each other randomly and you can't really choreograph.
That bit wasn't choreographed. There's no way you can't do that choreographed.
Yeah, not to that level, I guess.
They both knew it was going to happen. They're both doing it deliberately. They're not actually trying to hurt each other. But when hands are flailing like that, that's when you get a thumb up the nose. I mean, it's...
yeah, which you obviously want to avoid. And I guess yeah, I guess it's easier to avoid those kind of injuries when you are choreographing it like a dance, because then it can be a bit more structured, I guess.
But also, it comes down to the power that's involved as well. When you look at our fights, it is much more structured, but they're throwing big, powerful strikes at each other, intending to injure. These are little girly slaps.
I guess it makes it a bit easier as well when the other person in the fight isn't there, because
it's much easier to miss them when they're not there.
Yeah, exactly. So specifically to this film, did you draw inspiration for any real-world martial artists, historical sources, or anything like that?
Well, I'm a historical European martial arts instructor. Right. So I've been teaching sword fighting for 20 years now, as a martial art. So I came at fight choreography backwards. Right. So I was a trained martial artist, trained swordsman. Okay. And because I also worked in films, I was like, well, maybe I could do. And then I started working with some really great teams. Had a wonderful mentor for a time in Shores Wallace. And I learned a lot. And I've since gone on and worked in films. And every film I set to work on, I try and learn something new. Because there's always something new to learn. I never want to be the person who goes and goes, nope, I know everything about this, because I hate that person. Yeah. I think everyone does secretly. Yeah. So I always look at a film as a new learning experience, and I try and bring everything I've got to it. But when you take things like sword fighting, we've been doing it for a couple thousand years now. There's not really that much new to discover. Yeah. So I always try and make it look as authentic as possible. I use actual sword fighting techniques which I know work in real life, in real combat. So
people could watch this and learn how to fight a monster, I guess.
Yeah, if they really wanted to.
So what did you learn from this film?
It was learning things and reinforcing things for me in this film. I've always been a firm believer that when you rehearse a fight, you rehearse the whole fight. You make sure you take the same steps, you do the same swings, you do the same punching, because that's the only way everyone can be safe. Doing this with the CGI monster that's sometimes there, sometimes not there, really reinforced how important that was, because it meant everyone could do their fights, could do their moves, and that I knew everyone was going to be safe. I knew how far apart everyone was. How there's a wonderful, I don't know if you still see, there's a scar over my right eye. Right. Because we were rehearsing a fight, me and a friend of mine were rehearsing a fight, and when we came to the actual fight, the director had moved us into a different space. Right. And we were about 8 inches closer than we expected. Yeah. And I caught a gauntlet. He's wearing steel gauntlets. Wow. And I caught one to the side of the dome. Right.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, I mean, that's sort of related to that question I had before about the location, where, that was more about how you structure a fight there. But I guess I hadn't thought about how much of a difference it makes about the moves you've worked out, then if you change it suddenly, then everything else changes as well?
Absolutely. All of your movements have to change. And because we're shooting on a low budget and in a small area, we just had to get in and do it.
So what is the future of fight coordinating in films?
Fight choreography changes every time someone shoots a new scene. Yeah. And we see it grow and grow and improve. And when people are on their game, it's the best. I'll give you two examples. The recent Batman film with Ben Affleck, if you watch any of the crowd fight scenes, they're painfully awful. You can actually see people waiting to get punched in the face. They're just motionless in the crowd going, oh, Tony's been punched, must be my turn. Bang, I wonder what's for lunch. If, on the other hand, you go and watch the second Kingsman film, the fight scene in the church, there is no dead movement. There is no moment at any point in that fight. Or even better, the first fight in the pub. It's the one agent against the 5 lads, which is one of the hardest things to choreograph, because you can't just have someone waiting on the side going, is it my turn yet? Yeah. At no point in that fight do you see anyone stood on the side doing that. They're all in motion all the time. My hat is off to the whole team who are involved in that. The fighters, the choreographer, the camera crew, the editors, they all did just the most spectacular job, because that whole fight scene, in fact, all the way through the Kingsman series, all of the fight scenes are flawless. You watch them and they're just magnificent.
They're very well, because it's from a comic book, isn't it? Yeah. So it's like trying to adapt a comic book style into like film. I guess.
very successfully.
Yeah. So what's one thing audiences would never realise about how a fight is done on set?
How far apart fighters often are.
Interesting.
A
Yeah.
lot of that, especially with swords and other weapons, you'll see people swing a sword at someone and they'll take a hit and go down. What you don't realise is that because of the way the camera angle is cheating,
Yeah.
that person's actually 2 feet away from the end of the sword. There's no chance of them hitting it. So the guy with the sword can take a real swing, and this guy can react and hit the floor knowing that there's that big gap between them.
Yeah.
And then you're counting on your camera guy and you're counting on your editor to make sure that they've caught it and they can make it look real and they can cheat that distance.
It's not something we had to worry about a lot because of but I think there were some bits, you know, at the where they're sword fighting, which we'll come on to later, which was sort of like that, you know, where there's two people fighting each other, where, you know, you have to leave that sort of gap. Yeah.
Especially when you've got actors who aren't necessarily experienced swordsmen. Having that little bit of extra gap just means everyone's, and you heard me go on and on about it on site. Safety. Touch wood, I've never had a serious injury on any of my film sets yet, and that is because I do go on and on and on. And working on a film a little while ago, and we needed a really impressive looking arrow for a shot, so I brought one of my killing arrows in. It's a tri-bladed hunting arrow.
Right.
Because it's tri-bladed, if it hits you, your flesh opens up like a flower.
God. Yeah.
It's for hunting large game.
Yeah.
And we needed one for a shot just because it was in the story of it. Now, the camera shot was of the young lady in question drawing the arrow for the shot.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it's quite close up. So as I trained her, she announced that she was knocking on, which meant that the arrow was on the string.
Right.
When she pulled it back, all 40 pounds of the strength of the bow were now ready to release that arrow. I heard her call knocking on, I looked up, and the whole camera crew, the sound guy, the assistant director, and 4 or 5 other people were in front of her.
Right. Oh my God.
I went sprinting over like, oh God.
Oh my God.
Because if she'd slipped and she'd hit one of them, they'd have died. Like, even though we were in Nottingham, we're in a wooded area, so you can tell, even though we were within 15 minutes of a major hospital, I cannot guarantee anyone hit by that arrow would have survived it. And so I do go on and on about safety, because at the end of the day, even blunts, it's still a metre stick of metal. If I hit you with it, I'm going to hurt you.
No.
Sharp or not. But when that awful incident happened with the shooting in America, my inbox filled up with people going, "Oh, that's what you were talking about."
People often forget it until they're reminded of it with something like that.
Well, it's very much part of your headspace when you're on a film set, is that it's not real. Of course there isn't a real dragon. No, there aren't 9-foot demons running around in the woods. Oh, that sword's a prop. But it's still a metre of steel. If you hit someone in the head, they're in trouble.
Move out, search the perimeter.
I can't believe I'm saying this. But there's a monster in there, and I think that this sword has something to do with a legend to destroy it.
Every legend ends, Pete. Might as well be today.